Hi, everyone. Welcome to Power at the Podcast. In this episode, I have Chelsea Evaldi, who's a local entrepreneur that has a spot called Chuco Relic. It's become legendary and it's been around officially since 2012. And I'll just jump into it and I'll let Chelsea do the talking here in terms of the history of Chuco Relic. We were talking earlier on when it officially started. You bought it from a friend, but then it had different iterations. Can you
Yes.
can you expound on that?
So in 2012, I bought it. My friend actually in 2012, she started it September 2012. And then in 2014, we purchased it from her. And then in 2016, we rebranded it to what it is now, to Chuco Relic.
Okay. Um, Such a unique, you know, name. First of all, Chuco Relic. I mean that there is, as a writer, I'm like, oh man, that's a great thing to title to come up with, and talk on the origins of the name itself.
When I was thinking of rebranded it, so before when I purchased it, the business was called Mancho, and it's Penguin for French. And the previous owner, she had a tie to that name. But a lot of the times, to where I was taking the business, to it being a local brand, something that representative of the local artist, it just didn't connect. So I kept thinking, okay, I need to rebrand this business. And I wanted to be Chuco because in 2016, Chuco wasn't as popular as it is now. I think at that point, only Chuco Burger existed. And so it still had this idea of it, of like cholos and malandros, things like that. And it didn't have the best association to the name. And I thought, well, I'm going to make Chuco cool because of what I'm selling, what I'm representing. It's going to make the word Chuco cool. But I didn't know what to tie it with. I didn't want it to just be Chuco. And so my family's all of our initials are CR, Chelsea. I'm Chelsea Evaldi Rivas. And so my kids have CR initials. So I wanted it to also be a CR initial. So I really Googled synonyms for souvenirs, and relic came up. I went to business school marketing, and they told us, the K sound, the K sound is a good to have for your business, Kodak. And so I thought, okay, well, it has a K at the end. It'll be, people may be able to memorize it because of it. And I put it out for a poll with my friends and family, different names. Some were like souvenir teas and Chelsea teas. Like my family recommended names. And in the end, that's the name that won the poll. And I purchased that name in September, but I was too scared to put Chuco because I would even mention it to people and like, no, Chucos, no, that's an ugly name, or that's not a good title you want to have for your business, because you think of like the old English text, and that's not what your shirts are. And I just had to double down on it with myself because no one else was going to believe it. And that's what I've learned through my business, is that si me nace algo, if I get an idea, it's for a reason. And that was the first part of it. Okay, this is for a reason, that I thought Chuco, that I wanted to go through this. And then it just worked out where now people are like, I wish I had have thought that name. And I'm like, you don't know how scary it was to make that transition, but it was worth it.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
It has that. The relic. It just seems so. So like sacred and ancient, and you
Uh-huh.
think Indiana Jones. Like it's a fronterizo Indiana Jones, and
Yes.
so it has that. Yeah, it's a wonderful
And
title.
what we say is we're relics of El Paso. We're relics of El Chuco. We are what represents El Paso, what El Paso is made out of.
Speak on what I notice most about your brand and your business is what I appreciate most is that you've been able to integrate local artists and what they do, because I mean there's a lot of artists here that are in their neighborhoods, whether you're in the northeast part of El Paso, Lower Valley, West Side, East Side, Central. Everybody's in their rooms, throughout their lives, sketching and
Mm-hmm.
and doing interpretive art of what is going on inside of them or what they see around them, right? And so you found a unique niche of taking their art and getting it out to the masses here in El Paso, and that's hard to do because a lot of people do that, try that. They have screen printing and they go off and they work the markets and they do
Mm-hmm.
this and that's the hustle of El Paso, right, of the
Mm-hmm.
frontera. You found a bridge, the nice ideal place of authentic regional art, yet it has a certain mass appeal. How did that happen? What's the deal with that?
So I left El Paso for 10 years, and during that time, I grew an appreciation of how unique El Paso is and realizing what made it unique, what I appreciated from it. And so when I decided to start this business, I wanted to highlight that part of it. I wanted to highlight the mountain, the stars, which is regular, normal, but I wanted to highlight it in a way that was a story. When you walk into Chuco Relic, we're going to tell you a story of the product, of how it was made, who made it, what their story is of as an artist, you know? So I think that what we do is we build the connection between the art and the product. So we're going to tell you, well, we decided to do this like rice shirt because we wanted to represent where our raíces were, and I can tell you the whole story of how the shirt was created. We we build that gap. Sometimes I feel that when there's certain artists that don't feel comfortable with selling or telling about their art, and we do that for them. You know, they get to drop off their art, and we will tell the story because we're passionate about what they're creating, and so we kind of get to represent them, and it's an honor, you know, to get to represent these artists that are creating such beautiful things.
Absolutely. Um, that being said, how did growing up in Juarez shape who you are today?
It's so funny because for me it was normal crossing every day, waking up at 5 in the morning because I always went to school in El Paso. I lived in Juarez but went to school in El Paso. So for me it was normal to wake up at 5 in the morning, wait in the bridge for an hour, cross over, get ready in the car, combing my hair. Um, and it's not until I left that I realized what a unique experience I had and what a unique life I had because in Juarez, it was very normal for me to go to the parks. There was 3 parks around my neighborhood and play the whole day. I didn't come home until before the sun was down, and it was a sense of community that I don't think I would have had in El Paso because from the experiences that my friends have, they didn't even have that. Well, we would be on our VCs, on our bikes, riding from park to park, see who was in each park, play basketball, soccer the whole time, then come home and go to the stores. If we didn't have our soda, we would get a bag of soda, drink the soda, drink out of the manguera. My experience growing up in El Paso was so beautiful that I realized that it brought strength to my business as well. Another thing that was really unique is that I always wanted to hustle. Always wanted to make money because we weren't that well off as a family, and but I always wanted to buy things and things like that. And so when we were at the bridge, I would see the little kids hustling, making money. And when you're that age, when you're small, you don't realize the difference. Like I would be like, well, take me to the bridge so I can sell stuff and I'll make money. And my mom would just be like, no. So I started selling rubber bands, ligas for your hair. I would go to the houses around the neighborhood selling my ligas. And, but that for me, I work and if I see someone doing it, then I can do it. So me seeing other people hustle, because in Juarez, you hustle for what you have. And so me seeing that inspired me to be like, okay, well, I can do it. I just need to hustle. I just need to hustle more, not knowing what a great difference it was, right? And I grew up in this weird paradox where in El Paso, I was poor, but in Juarez, I was middle class. So when I crossed the bridge, I was poor. I didn't have name brands. And I went to a private school. So I was like in the lower end of my private school. And my mom worked as a secretary there to get us through school. And then I'd go to Juarez, and then we'd be las güeritas that had money. And it was different, you know, to be able to experience both just depending on what side of the border I was at.
What were some of the earliest memories of entrepreneurship or creativity? I mean, you kind of expanded on that right now, but can you specify a few more things that happened that would eventually lead to you?
Yeah,
Now?
so as I mentioned, I would always find, there in our neighborhood in Juarez, they would always leave stuff out. You know, well, they even do it now, like trash out. But I would be like, someone's trash is another person's treasure. So I would get it, And I was never shy. I would go to the next neighbor and be like, "Do you want to buy this? Do you want to buy it?" Because I would be like, "Look, it's this and this." I would try to sell it to my friends or try to fix it up in a way. And I would also think, okay, well, what am I good at? Maybe I can make money off of selling. I would do a lot of collages, things like that. So always was looking for opportunities to make money because I wasn't going to get it from my parents. My parents were the whole, always growing up, no hay dinero, no hay dinero, hay comida en la casa. So I always was trying to figure out how I can get out of that
That
boundary, that,
mindset.
yeah, of being like, okay, I need to make my own money then, which in turn has made me a problem solver, because I say that's one of my strengths is I'm a great problem solver. And what has helped me as my business, growing my business, is that I see problems as opportunities, and I think, okay, I have this problem, I can't grow here. What is the opportunity? What how can I expand this? And for example, when I started Chuco Relic, or when I purchased Chuco Relic, I thought, well, I don't have product. I don't have a lot of product, but there's a lot of artists that are selling their product. So in the beginning, I started with consignment. It wasn't a big, I didn't have to purchase the product immediately. I was able to consign and build those relationships with them, and then be able to sell the product and build some um, customers through it, some money through it, to continue to have a business open.
Listening to you, so 2012 was when you were working with, you bought it with your for your
Hmm.
friend, right? And it was named something else, and but within prior to that, you deciding to get involved in the business before it was Chuco Relic.
Hmm.
What were you doing, and what
Okay.
spawned you to the idea for you to go off and purchase it?
So, as I had mentioned, I left El Paso for 10 years. And when I moved back, I felt like El Paso wasn't getting the recognition it deserved. I felt like El Paso was more than what people were giving, the recognition they were giving it. And so I thought, I need to change that. I didn't know how. I talked to a friend and I asked him, well, what if, because he did videos. And so I was like, what if we create videos highlighting different places in El Paso, saying what small businesses there are, which things there are to do. And when you have to rely on someone else, it's harder to bring ideas to fruition. And so I ended up applying for tourism in the tourism department of El Paso, Visit El Paso, and I got the job. I mean, I made sure that I got that job. I did a video. I called every week to see if they had gotten my application, and they took like 3 months for them to finally hire me, but I got the job and it was in tourism. And I thought, okay, well, this is how I'm going to fulfill this thing that I have inside of me of promoting El Paso. And I ended up working with Visit El Paso in their tourism department for 3 years. And then I had the opportunity to purchase Chuco Relic.
Okay. How did you fund your business in the beginning?
So that was tricky because my husband and I had just gotten married. We didn't have a lot of money. So when I purchased the business for my friend, she allowed me to do it in payments, which helped a lot because I didn't have just a big capital to initiate in the business. We had savings, we had money put aside, and we were super conservative. I I didn't start paying myself until really 5 years into the business. And I think that's something that a lot of people have to realize, that when you start, you're not going to be able to take much from it because you have to continuously reinvest into it. So really, we just purchased it through savings, saving our money, um, and not using any of the money from it until we knew what patterns we had as far as revenue.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. So at that point, that was uh, that was the impetus of your or the dynamicism of your entrepreneurship. That's
Hmm.
where it's beginning because you're looking to hustle, right? You're looking to,
Right.
how do you make this happen in work, and how do you do it within a fiscally responsible way. That's
Hmm.
I always been the entrepreneurs sort of, at least from my standpoint. I play around with this phrase as of late when people ask me what I do and what I've done, and sometimes I have a hard time saying it. I don't want to get into the whole thing of like well, I write books and I'm a film, like I'm on this and I'm that. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
oh man, how do I simplify this? When I have passing conversation with it, where I don't want to just be like blasé and rude before I
Uh-huh.
would come across that way because I'm like, this or that. I don't want to talk about it, and so like I call it entrepreneurship,
Uh-huh.
and it's a unique combination. I think that's you're the quintessence of that because those lessons that you learn and the fact of the matter is that you're dealing with culture, you're selling culture.
Mm-hmm.
That's the niche, and what was your first big break and how did it shape your business?
So when we first started, we were downtown, and there was many days where we wouldn't get any customers, zero customers. And I had my son with me. At the time he was 3, and so it would just be him and I playing the whole time. But it made me feel unsuccessful and made me question my decisions of if it was smart for me to purchase a business, being a mom. I felt like my family felt made may think of me a bit irresponsible by saying, okay, I'm going to quit my job and start this business. And in the beginning you feel crazy, so there was this moment when we really were at a make it or break it point, and we ended up doing I would have the store every day open, and then I would also do markets. And so we really didn't have money for rent. We went to Dia de los Muertos market in November. I remember because it was such a tough time, and we ended up making rent at that market. And that's just one point that it felt like the world was just pushing me, like, okay, we made it one more month. Let's keep going. And there was these just little moments where I was ready to quit, and the world would put these little um, pebbles, these jewels for me to say, no, 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 it's okay. You can do it one more month. Um, and that's how it was for a while, just barely getting by and questioning myself daily if I was making the right decision by starting this business that promotes El Paso. And a lot of people would tell me, there's not even tourism in El Paso. Why would you open this kind of business? And I would say it's not for tourism, it's for El Pasoans. It's for El Pasoans that love El Paso.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Um, from how did you transition from outsourcing to printing your own shirts in your warehouse?
So that was a huge step for us because the shirts are our main seller. Uh, we take pride in our shirts. People take pride in their shirts, wearing them, representing the frontera. And so we were having a hard time with purchasing or with having people create the shirts for us. So sometimes it would be like, oh yeah, we'll have your shirts next week. Because for mine, in my perspective, I had a legitimate business, right? Like if I tell a customer I have this product, I want to have this product. I don't want to say, well, maybe next week and not know. And I was experiencing that a lot when I was having to purchase shirts from other businesses. And it also had where they had power over my business at the same time, because if they chose not to make shirts, then there went my business. So little by little, my husband started watching YouTube videos to see how to make shirts. We went out to Phoenix, and I remember in my in-laws SUV, we purchased a four arm a screen press machine, and on the way back, our car overheated. So we were at the side of the road with our new screen press machine. So it was like, so exciting, but also going through tough times trying to figure out how we're going to fix this car. We finally get it back, and nothing has been for us overnight, right? Because we got this machine, I feel like in July, and we really didn't get going. And I think, again, the world where it pushes you is until the August tragedy, where it forced us to print shirts quick because El Paso Strong was happening and we wanted to be part of donating. And so we went into it full swing. I have a video where it shows my kids were helping us put the shirts in. It just pushed us to use that machine full capacity. And from there, it took the fear away from us. If we produce shirts? Yeah, we can. We were producing about 300 shirts, I think every 3 weeks, and it was nonstop. So that was a big change in our business, where now we were in control of our manufacturing, of producing the products, and we had more control of what we were producing as well.
Awesome. Awesome. That's one of the amazing things that I've learned about El Paso. That I've learned it as I got better at learning. And using the higher parts of my brain. Right, where before, I was living off of the sort of response to things. Right, and I travel. I go to Austin. I lived there for a while. I lived in Albuquerque. I lived in Manhattan, and oftentimes, like, that was the one thing that I always thought. I always carry El Paso and Juarez with me, whether I like it or not. So I decided to like it instead of not liking it, right?
Yeah.
And so, and it's interesting how you're saying that people, when you were starting this business as a relic shop,
Uh-huh.
and people were saying that there's no tourism here. Why would you do that? Whereas when you get out of here and you realize the unique cultural value of El Paso, and then other people, for the most part, of course you have the naysayers, or the people that think in terms of cliches and tropes that they see on mass media about
Right.
what the frontera is. But for the most part, there tends to be a genuine curiosity about what El Paso and Juarez is. I think that's why you see more productions coming, big Hollywood productions. They've always come here throughout the years, but only now with social media it becomes a lot more visible, right? And we had DiCaprio and Benicio and Paul Thomas Anderson
Yes.
here recently and last year, and then right now El Paso's buzzing with Shia LaWolf,
Yes.
LaBeouf. I don't know how to say his name
don't
properly.
either.
LaBeouf. I mean, what I tell this guy? I don't know how to say your name. When I sat with him yesterday at Taco Neta, we just ran into each other, and it was cool, right? So the rest of the world sees, for the most part, it sees the value, the unique value proposition, cultural proposition, and ain't proposition, just the cultural placement of El Paso,
Yes.
and you have that. I think you have it malleable within the palm of your hand. In terms of distribution, and then just to kind of like tangentially go off on how we connected again recently, working with the ESTTE Foundation,
Yes.
right? And let's talk on that, because I've been working with Beto Payares and Dr. Payares
Yes.
for I don't even know now, 15, 16 years, and I used to do work with him, and before it was the STTE, or without like getting into the politics of how that plays out, they had an organization, him and another gentleman named Eli Velasquez, who was a IP attorney, intellectual property attorney, and they hired me to do pitch videos for them, 2-minute pitch videos, and this is before there was in Facebook. This is like before it was known as social media content creation, before it was known as any of that. We were doing that, and I would just get with. They had a fund where they were looking for local inventors and engineers and people that are really brilliant and have things to create to license it and get it out into the bigger market. So inadvertently, I've been involved in that, directly and indirectly, and so connecting with you again through this Southwest pitch scenario here
Yes.
that you were a part of, like speak on that, like how did you find out? How did you get involved? And what are you learning from that, or what's happening with that?
So El Paso has a lot of great organizations that are helping small businesses, and STT is one of them. STT is a really great resource for the entrepreneurs to be able to build community, because they have a great community of entrepreneurs, and they also help with funding. So I initially came across with them through Stephanie. Stephanie is the one that asked me, like,
Stephanie Schilling, right?
yes, she's the one that told me about it and about the application. And so I went ahead and applied, and we would have these weekly courses, which were so amazing. And that's something that I actually told her, that we need something in El Paso, like a mastermind, which it was very similar to that. We would have guest speakers that would tell us speak to us about their profession, about their knowledge, which was AI, funding, um, pitch competitions, all of that. Which it was really amazing to hear other people, and especially there were some of them were from El Paso that I didn't know that had were experts at that. And then afterwards, we had the competition, the pitch competition, where you pitched about your business and were able to get funding or even have a startup, help you out with that. And so that was just a great experience for me. I've done several podcasts, but I've never been in that sort of stage where it was just this huge screen behind you, being totally vulnerable, speaking about your business, doing that asking for that funding was really amazing. At the time, I was so scared, and I know that I didn't do the best job, but at the same time, knowing that I did it, I know that I can do it again. Right. So once given the opportunity to do that again, I'll be able to. So having the opportunity to have that stage was amazing because now I know what I'm capable of doing. So whenever I have to do this, have the competition again, a pitch competition, I know I'm ready for it because I've done it before. And that's what SCT gives you the opportunity to do that sort of stuff.
I think what I love about that organization, those kinds of organizations, and what they do, with the connection, network connection, is on that ultimately. I mean, it's the romance that we all have towards why we watch Shark Tank, right? Like it's such a popular show for the fact that whether you were even my brother, who's his older brother, who was involved in like asbestos cleanup, environmental work, things that have nothing to do with necessarily with entrepreneurship and ideas. But I know deep down inside, in his brain, he was an inventor, and he would watch. He's the one that introduced me to that show, and years ago. And I'm like, oh wow, cool. So you just get on there and you pitch these really successful business people your idea,
Yes.
and you can see why it's nerve wracking, right? Like, because it's one thing to be able to be a good communicator, to have charisma, to be able to jive, but now you put that in the frame of like organizing what you're selling, what you're presenting, and
Yes.
convincing people that are brilliantly on the dot in terms of what they recognize is going to be a success, and the lining up with the numbers and all that. I mean, that's a whole different ball game, and then for you to get up. And sometimes though, I think now, I think the success of it, whether or not you reach that whatever goal you had in mind for that pitch, I think this is sort of an extension of the success of that, is kind of us reconnecting again, and then doing a podcast, and then taking this material and this content and putting it out there in the world, and finding more specificity in terms of how you can utilize technology and content as a means of getting it out to stakeholders,
Right.
and gatekeepers, because it's not always gonna be Shark Tank. It's not always gonna be a big
Right.
stage that you're in. Oftentimes, it's a random spot that you run into
Right.
with somebody. Like yesterday, me just tapping into Shia LaBeouf there, LaWolf, like there. It'd be funny if you heard the podcast about butchering his last name. Sorry, bro.
Reshare it.
But like that was like, ironically, I was telling people throughout the years, I mean, I've been involved in film for 27 years, and it's always been a nonstop pitch, whether I like it or not. And ironically, when you think about the ideal setting of being there with a big time director, a big time person that has, or a producer that has the power to say, I love that idea. Here's X amount of dollars. Let's make it happen. It hardly ever really happens that way. The way it happens is ironically just running into someone like that yesterday, and us really having an engaging conversation for half an hour. And he realized that he was the one that asked me, "Hey, you're in the industry, right?" I'm like, he can tell, and I'm like, "Yeah." I told him my background, and he's, "Oh, wow," and so like I think this is part of the journey to get to that stage again, and oftentimes it probably is even a little bit more volatile and lucrative than you would expect, you would
Right.
think, and so yeah, I'm saying that because I'm excited about the probability of getting Chuco Relic out there as as an international, at least national first, right?
Yes.
At least a national brand, and going to Bucky's or going to wherever you go, and all of a sudden, bam, there's Chuco Relic. That's an exciting probability there, right?
Yes, it is. It is. It is. And you're right. I mean, every opportunity, everything that like this podcast, saying yes to something like this, even though it's for me, it's very uncomfortable and I overthink it. And what did I say? And it's still an opportunity. So I don't turn it down. I don't let my discomfort take me away from opportunities, because even the SCTE was really scary for me, getting in front of that stage, but it's part of it. It's part of the growth. It's part of getting out of your comfort zone, because if it was easy, then everybody would do it. I always tell people that, it's that cliche saying, but it's true, because there's things that I've had to do to get to where I am, and I had to be uncomfortable doing it. I had to do the podcast, and those gave me other opportunities. I had to do that stage presentation at SCT, and now I got to connect with you again. And everything is an opportunity if you just keep seeking it.
Exactly. If you see it as such, right?
Yes.
For me, that's been one of the most profound life lessons and one that I learned from Don Shapiro. One of the many that I learned from him was that,
Mm-hmm.
like, he always had an open door policy, to anybody, and he meant it. Like you see the difference between, like, you'd walk in there and you could be a person from the neighborhood that has an idea or has a concern, or you can be, his billionaire partners and friends, and he would treat the situation pretty much the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the things that that's a great lesson, is that every single person is a potential,
Right.
like connection to something else,
Yes.
and they really are. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
matter of how connected you are,
Right.
to that to
Yes.
that probability, that grid network. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really hard to apply that, because we think that it comes within the confines of a preordained institution, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's whatever it is. But I think the awesome thing about this time in this day and age is that, social media and content creation is so accessible,
Right.
and messaging and branding and network connections is so much more, like, in the palm of your hands, that it's, you want to do everything possible to be prepared and
Right.
be present.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Let me okay. What's your take on business that try to imitate what you're doing?
At first, that was scary for me, honestly, to when I would see businesses replicating exactly my same model, getting the local artist, doing t-shirts. I really would think, this is it. This is the beginning of the end. And it would just be so scary. I would be upset at the business. And then I would be okay. Nothing would change for me. And I was like, okay, well, that was a waste of energy, for to be upset about that. And now I see it more. And I I feel like, one, to even be able to put your business out there, that's already one step towards something that you're trying to accomplish, right? Now, if you had something that you're seeing me and you're seeing, okay, well, she does that, I can do that. That's what I want. I want you to say, I can do it too. Where it's going to be different though, because you're not me and I'm not you. Right. So even if there are businesses that are wanting to do exactly what I'm doing, it's going to be different in their own way, because we have different imaginations, different ways of perceiving our business, different ways of wanting to put our business out there. And so it's not, for me, it's not really a threat anymore. I say, okay, well, I hope they do well. I hope they do well, because it's hard out here. And I also try to stay open minded. I don't follow my competition, because I don't ever want to cloud my mind with with their ideas, because there are times that I'm like, oh, I wish I would have thought of that, So I really try not to see what they're doing, because I want to respect what they're doing. I don't want to ever take something that they've created and make it my own. Um, and I would hope they would have the same respect for me. But just starting a business is hard enough, so it's no longer a threat for me. It really, for me, is just hey, well, welcome, good luck. I hope you make it, because in the first, we're constantly in a, like, yay, we're the best, and then it's like, oh my gosh, this is so scary, are we going to make it, so it's this constant state of roller coaster that we have. it's no longer for me a competition, but just someone else that's joining in the circle of businesses and trying to make it. So it there's enough space for all of us. I mean, we're a big city, and we're a lot of fronteros out there, so we can all make it. And if we make it out together, then that's even better.
Yeah, absolutely. You just what is it? Imitation's
Form of flattery.
form of flattery, right?
Yes. At first, when
It,
people would
it's
tell me
hard to
that, I'm
be.
like, I am not flattered at all. They are taking money away from me. But no, I'm telling you, I think I mean, it's happened so many times. There's so many businesses so similar that now it's just like, okay, well, let's do it. The goal is to,
Bring it on. Yeah,
yeah, the
yeah,
goal is
absolutely.
to make El Paso great. And that's what we're all trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a natural thing. I'm like that too. I know throughout the years, whatever what Power at the Pass has become or whatever, what it is, and like I would when somebody would come out, like they come in here for a few months and then they go off and do art gallery space or do something like that on their own too. I'm like, oh, they just came and took some IP here, and I get upset, or this person's gonna move in here do the same thing, and again, I'm gonna he's gonna be with me for the rest of my life, and Don would. Whereas I would get upset and I'd be kind of petty about it in some ways, and he would, like jovially, like a Buddha, be laughing, like, "Oh, that's great, it's working then. What we're doing is working." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Don, but wait, like they're gonna come in." He's like, "No, nobody's gonna take anything. It's gonna ultimately be coal that's gonna be put into our fire." And it's a collective fire that doesn't burn
Yes.
somebody. There's a sort of a communal warmth that if I've just gotten better at doing it more,
Right.
doing it better throughout the years, and protecting, sort of the atmosphere that you have
Yes.
within, and taking lessons, and just getting more fortified, right, and more empowered and rooted, and so I think I mean, how many shops do you have now?
We have 3.
Look at that,
Yes.
look at that. You franchised it, essentially here, and what are some of the future goals for Chuco Relic, for people that you're comfortable in getting out there and
Yes. So, that's a question, of course, every business has. Everybody is wanting to grow and expand, and I'm in this unique, well, many people are, but for me, I'm in this unique situation where I'm a mom. I have a 12 and a 9-year-old, and I feel like I've put so much into my business that there's moments that I have to acknowledge that I have to be more of a mom. I've been talking a lot more to mentors, to women that have gone through this, and all of them have told me, be there for your kids, be there for your kids. And it's this thing that female entrepreneurs, that our moms have to go through, that we have to literally tear ourselves into two to be the best at both. And sometimes it's not, you just can't do it that much. So honestly, for the next 5 years, I'm going to make Chuco Relic as strong as possible, build the best systems possible. And also, but my main focus is be the best mom. I always think, okay, I'm at that point. So in 5 years, I'm gonna be 45. And for me, I'm like, oh my God, that's so old. But then I see there's those things where it's like, this person became successful at 50. This person did this at 47. That for me is like, okay, it's not the end. It's okay. It's okay if I'm strengthening, building Chuco Relic to what it is, making sure that it's good for the next 5 years. And maybe it's less. But for now, I know that my commitment is to be a great mom, because I only get these 5 years with my kids. I'm not going to get back, right? They're important for them. And so saying it when I talk about my business, I feel like it's disappointing maybe to others. It's not motivating to others, because I'm saying, well, I'm focusing on being a really great mom, because it has nothing to do with my business. And there's no such thing as balance when you're a mom and a wife and a business owner. And
there's no such thing as balance.
no,
Wow, that's a
there's no
statement.
way, if I'm good at my business, then I'm lacking as a mother. If I'm great as a mother, then I'm lacking at my business. It's a constant thing that I have to keep going over, or if I'm really great at being a business and a mom, then my health is failing, because I don't sleep. I'm constant, I'll get 3 hours of sleep, but everything is running great. But I'm not sleeping, and I feel sick, and so I have to recognize that that's a part of it, and that I have to. It's one of my challenges that maybe in 5 years I'm going to tell you about it, and at that point I've been able to grow my business outside. But I was true to what I knew that I needed to be at that moment. So, and I ultimately, my goal is to be a Bucky's, right? I want Chuco Relic to be everywhere. And I want all people in the Frontera to go to Chuco Relic to support the local artist and to represent the Frontera. Eventually, I would want to be in every city in the Frontera. That's my goal, ultimate dream. But I know that in 5 years, that's what I'm going to be focusing on.
And I support you. I've always supported you in my own way because, inadvertently as being involved in film and being a writer, the work is promotions. My work is sort of cultural ambassadorship. Whether I was aware of it or not. And I think as I got a little bit older and I got a little more sophisticated, which is not to say that I'm sophisticated, just a little more, sophisticated. It was that I would see that professionals, jobs, institutions, city-funded scenarios of how do you like a lot of funding, a lot of attention from a lot of really smart and professional people are put in. They put time into how do you tell the story or how do you brand what's the most appealing thing that we can do create here is that'll bring attention from the world to want to inspire people to come and visit. Right, the city gets behind that. There's campaigns. There's Sorry about that. As that green tea matcha there, but there's all kinds of campaigns for like video campaigns are always probably the most expensive ones, right? And there's billboard ads, and I remember there was a time when some people were going out to South by Southwest from the city, right? And to go and rep and make South by Southwest, I mean El Paso, palatable and interesting for people out there. And I was out there just by default because I have Austin's always been a home away from home, so I go there just to live. And it so happened I was there during South by Southwest, and I went to a party of a restaurant from El Pasoans out there. So it was like an El Paso party, and the people that were sent by the city to go and rep were there. And I got to be completely honest. When I saw what they were doing, I was all like, "Oh, that is so cheesy." Like that's just not gonna bode well. I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm like, it doesn't feel right, And I'm like, and it's always a thing where for me, one of the pitches whenever I had a chance to go and present to the city or people that have, control of a substantial budget for your promotions, would be that, for me, I was never appealed to a town by the video I would see at an airport, that had somebody biking down the hill or mariachis playing in the mountains, I think that's cool, necessary. But what is most appealing for me has always been the people and the culture and the natural, organic, flow that pops out of whatever region. I didn't go to Austin because of the downtown. I went there because of the distinct cultural like originality of it,
Right.
And the weirdness of it, and like the whole deal. When I go to Houston, I think, oh, this is gonna be like international. I'm gonna get Asian. I'm gonna get Saudi Arabian feel. I'm gonna get the pulse of what that region is. I'm gonna go to Dallas. I'm gonna get this slick corporate thing. Everything has its own identity. San Antonio, you have, and on. So like, what I like about your brand, which is why I support it, is because it's original. It's cool. It's like it has a natural gravitational pull to it that's not contrite or it's not pretentious or it's not like a cling at trying to get something to turn this way. Whereas you're just being you're being yourself, and but yourself is not like this one thing. It's a dynamic thing that's happening, that's growing. So that's what I appreciate about Chuco Relic, is that it's one of the best ways to represent the border in a culturally authentic way. So thank you for that.
Thank you. We're trying. And I think what makes it, when we touched on it in the beginning, what makes it unique or what makes it not forced is that it's done by local artists, right? So it's from the people, it's from the raza that are creating things. And so even the designers that we have locally, they're, or in-house, I mean, the designers we have in-house, they are from El Paso and they understand what we're going through, and then we get to connect with other artists and see what they're going through and what they're we all talk about, we all create by what we're feeling and by what's affecting us. So when we put stuff out in the at the store, it's natural to what is around us because we're living it, right? And I think that we, with the corporate, how you're talking about how they represent us, it's sometimes too corporatey. They forget that we're raza. You know, we don't need all the fancy frills and stuff like that. We're just happy to help each other, be there for each other. Um, and we're just a big community. And that's what really brought me back to El Paso, is just the sense of community that we have here, that we're always helping each other out, that we're always looking for opportunities to, just this podcast alone, you doing this is to help me out as a business, to give me exposure, which is
And
huge.
Richie, you know,
Yes.
both of us here with.
And so that it's just amazing how we're El Pasoans are always looking for ways to help each other out, and that's what makes us unique.
That's right. Heard it from the pioneer Chuco Relic herself. Any closing thoughts, statements you want to make?
No, I mean, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it so much. Thank you all for your time, for doing this, for giving space to people that have a story, that want to share what they're doing and to inspire others to do the same.
Bam, beautiful. Yes, yeah. Thank you so much. It was
you.
I enjoyed it and learned. Hopefully, you guys will too. You know, for you budding entrepreneurs out there, you get some real life lessons from someone that's making it happen on all fronts. So, thank you again, Chelsea.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, guys. Have a good one. Thank you.